Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to talk about how you can read the balance sheet of a company. In the last video of the financial item part 1, I discussed how you can read the income statement, and here I'm going to discuss how you can read the second part, which is the balance sheet of a company. If you're new to this channel, please don't forget to subscribe, and without further wasting the time, let's head to the Yahoo Finance, where I'm going to search for AMD. AMD stands for Advanced Micro Devices, and if you click on it, you will get a summary. And for balance sheet, you go into the financial column, and first is the income statement, which I already discussed, and here is the balance sheet. Balance sheet is basically what company owes, total asset and total liabilities. Asset is anything, for example, you own a house, a car, furniture, any electronics that can be liquidated is known as asset, and that's what company also own a lot of stuff which is known as company assets. And here there are two type of asset. One is the current and one is the non-current. Current asset is anything that company can liquidate in coming 12 months, and non-current asset is anything that company is not willing or going to liquidate as a cash in coming 12 months. So in current asset, this is further divided into 3 to 4 categories, and first is the cash and cash equivalent. Company has $3.6 billion of cash in hand, which they can spend, and the second is the receivable. Receivable is anything that is owed to the company. So this is amount customers or anyone who has received the product for the company is owed this amount, and this receivable is around $2.7 billion. Second is the inventory. Inventory is anything that is company has already, and which is could be raw material and what type of work in progress project they already have, and finished goods which they already have completed. So this amount is also $1.9 billion. Prepaid asset is anything that company has already paid for. For example, if you have to pay the installment of a car for, let's say, to next 12 months, but you already paid although it's not due. Similarly, company AMD has already paid 312 million in its prepaid asset. So if you add everything into this current asset, 3.6 billion into 2.7 inventory and prepaid asset, this ends up in the current assets of $8.5 billion. The second on the item is that non-current asset, and company is not going to liquidate these in coming 12 months. And as it suggests, the non-current asset, company is not going to, for example, sell its power plants or equipment. And as you can see in non-current asset, company has machinery, furniture, equipment, which has a worth of $1.5 billion, and they have properties of 367 million. They have construction in progress, and which is 96 million, and they are also have lease payment which is of $206 million. On all these equipment and everything, power plant, whatever they have, there will be a depreciation over the time, and this depreciation they have added of $1.1 billion. For example, if you own a car which costs you $50,000, but on the coming year the worth of that car is going to be less than what you bought for. So similarly, the company also added depreciation on its balance sheet of what they owe as a non-current asset, and uh, especially on these power plants and equipment. So they have added $1.1 billion. And the next is the goodwill and other intangible asset. As goodwill, uh, Warren Buffett said, is not a real asset. It could be that a company, if for example somebody is going to take over or somebody is going to buy AMD, they will add a goodwill for this company. They could maybe they could pay more than what is the real worth of a company. So, for example, let's say if a company, for example, let's say a company wants to buy another company, and the worth of that company is $1 billion. But maybe a company will say, okay, we will pay you $1.2 billion, and that, let's say, is 200 million would be as a goodwill of the company. Similar to goodwill, another is the intangible asset, which company also has $328 million. This intangible asset, for example, could be um, this is like a brand recognition. AMD is like a quite big company, and it is like a brand. For example, Coca-Cola has a brand recognition. So these are not physical asset, and these are like goodwill and intangible asset. So they also add on to the balance sheet of a company. On the other is the investment and advances. So this is the long-term investment company has made, which is $69 million. And on the other side, they also have a non-current deferred tax, which is $931 million. On the last on the list is the non-current prepaid assets. So they also are going to pay this prepaid assets of 916 million, but they are not planning to do this in, let's say, in the coming 12 months. There are also other non-current assets which Yahoo Finance did not mention here, but if you add up all those terms, you would end up with exactly $3.83 billion. Second on the list is the liability. As like the asset, company also owes money to its supplier or long-term debt company has, which is known as the liability. Current liability is further divided into different categories, and first is the payable and accrued expenses. Payable is anything that a company owes to creditor or supplier, and similar to payable is the accrued expenses. This is also the amount companies have not paid, and it's like another type of liability to the company. Second on the list is pension and other post-retirement benefits, and company has to pay around $705 million. After that, we has the current debt, and current debt company has around $312 million. And this is interesting to see that in the last 2019 and 20, company has not taken any, let's say, a short-term debt, but AMD has decided to take more debt, maybe to raise more money and to produce even more products. On the last on the list is the current deferred liabilities, which are none. But on the other liabilities, which are not mentioned here, which Yahoo Finance has sum up all together, and which are around 98 million. And if we all together all these terms, we will get the current liabilities of $4.2 billion. If we go next on the non-current liabilities, normally most of the time balance sheet always include, when it comes to non-current liabilities, are long-term debt. And here we can see that on long-term debt, the company has a long-term capital lease obligation of 348 million, and long-term debt in this case is very low, just 1 million, but this long-term debt could be included in both terms, which is around $349 million. Other non-current liabilities which are not mentioned in Yahoo Finance, which you can also search if you want on the 10K filing of AMD. And if we search for AMD here, you could go here on AMD website, and here you could go to the website where you find the AMD investor. Here you will see the financial information, and here you can go to the financial table, and here you can go in more further detail, and here you can see what the other long-term debt of a companies are. So in total, company has a $682 million of long-term debt, and current liabilities of 4.2 billion, which includes which adds up total as a $4.9 billion. There are different financial terms and which investors talk about when describing a company. And so let's describe one by one. So total capitalization we'll discuss later. First goes through the common stock equity, and common stock equity has the definition of total assets minus total liabilities. And if you take the total asset, which is 12419, and if you minus total liabilities, which is 4922, you would end up with the common stock equity of 7497. Here you see a different term as the total capitalization, and total capitalization is actually total long-term debt plus the common stock equity. So what we see, the common stock equity is 7497, and then we can add the total long-term debt. And total long-term debt, as you have seen, is the total non-current asset, which is just here in term is just $1 million in a sense. And if you add here 7497, you would have an extra million, 7498. So this is the definition of total capitalization when it comes to the balance sheet. On other is the capital lease obligation, which you also can find in the liabilities under non-current liabilities. Next on the list is the net tangible asset, and net tangible asset has the definition of common stock equity minus any goodwill company has. So a net tangible asset, or also known as the tangible book value, is total asset minus total liabilities, which is stock common stock equity, which is 7497. And if we divide minus the goodwill, you will get the tangible book value. And in this case, company has let's say the goodwill, which is in the non-current assets, which is $617 million. So if we divide minus 617 million from the uh, common stock equity, you will get 6880. So this is the net tangible asset value, or the book value of a company. Next on the list is the working capital, and working capital has the definition of current assets minus current liabilities. The company has current assets of 8583 minus, sorry, 8583, and we can minus the current liabilities, which are 4240. So we end up with the working capital of $4.3 billion. So, and these are the mostly terms investors talk about when describing a company. And now that we have seen all these terms, let me just expand, collapse this, and what we have to look for when we are trying to invest in a company. First of all, you look for a company that has the total current assets, and if you divide the total current assets by total current liabilities, the number should be above 1. And total current assets of, as we have seen, is 8.5, and total current liabilities are 4.2. And if we divide those two, we will get 8583 divided by 4240. And this gives us 2, which mean normally you look for a company that at least has a value of 1, but 2 is better, and if it's 3, it's even better. So this means company has enough cash that they can pay out the debt if something goes wrong, let's say in the next quarter or year. And second thing you have to do, that they have enough money to pay their debt. And then again, if you have to look for if they have a long-term debt into the balance sheet, and if it's increasing crazily, and then you have to consider why they are taking so much debt. But here in case, you can see that AMD has long-term debt in 2018, which is 1.1 billion, but from onward from 18 they have been very successful in decreasing this value. And as you can see, in 2021 they have only taken the long-term debt of only $349 million. The next, we have to consider the common stock equity, or the stakeholder equity should increase year over year. And as you can see, AMD has been really successful in this regard, and they have been increasing this common stock equity year over year. And from 2018, they have increased 7 times in the last 3 years. So depending on the income statement, I would say And the balance sheet, AMD looks a very good opportunity, but these are the two financial items, and we can make this decision more precisely by reading the cash flow, which I will make in another video. If you stay till the end of the video, I would highly ask you to like this video and subscribe to our channel, would be highly appreciated. Myself is Adnan, and I will see you in the next one.